For years, people whispered that Buckingham Palace was ignoring everything. But now it's clear. They weren't ignoring a thing. They were waiting. Waiting with a kind of silence that burns. Because when the truth finally came out, it wasn't some rumor or half-baked gossip. It was official. Inside those palace walls, papers had been drawn up. Real papers, not drafts, not "we'll see later." These were final orders. Orders that would permanently change the future of two little children who never asked to be dragged into this royal storm, Archie and Lilibet. And when those papers were signed, a message echoed through the marble halls of Buckingham Palace. Their royal claim was gone. Not paused, not pending, not under review. Gone. Just like that. The palace hadn't been sleeping. They'd been calm, patient, absolutely certain that in the end, the rulebook would shout louder than any interview or podcast Meghan and Harry could ever do. But to understand this cold, surgical decision, we have to go way back. Back to a time when royal blood wasn't just about blue veins and fancy titles. It was law. The year was 1917. The world was falling apart. Empires were crumbling. And in the middle of all that chaos, King George V decided to save the crown by setting in stone who could and who could not be called royal. He didn't just speak it into existence, he wrote it down. The letters patent, the royal constitution of birthright, the spine of royal identity for more than a century. And inside that ancient document, there were 3 rules so strict they might as well have been carved in gold. Rule 1. The child must be of legitimate royal blood. No confusion, no outsiders sneaking into the line of succession. Rule 2. The birth must be formally recognized and recorded by the crown itself. No private PR announcements, no Instagram statements. The paperwork had to come from inside Buckingham Palace. And Rule 3. The child had to be christened by the Church of England. That wasn't a family choice or a sweet Sunday event. It was law. For 100 years, those rules never bent. Every royal baby, from George to Charlotte to Louis, they all followed the process perfectly. Everything neat, sealed, official. Until 2019, until little Archie came along. Now, Archie's birth should have been the happiest news in the world. A royal baby. Meghan and Harry smiling, cameras flashing, history being made. But somewhere in the middle of that celebration, the first crack appeared. When Archie's birth certificate was first filed, it looked completely normal. Rachel Meghan Markle, listed as the mother, just as the law required. But weeks later, something changed. Quietly, without warning. Her full legal name vanished. In its place appeared one phrase, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Now, that might sound small, but in royal paperwork, that's huge. Birth certificates are not. Social media bios, they're permanent legal records. They don't just get edited because someone feels like it. So when that change appeared, the palace went into quiet chaos. Meghan said the palace forced her to do it. Palace aides said Meghan requested it herself. Both sides denied everything, and to this day, no one really knows the truth. But what mattered wasn't who did it. It was that it happened. Because once a royal record has a single doubt attached to it, that doubt spreads, like a crack in glass, traveling quietly until it finally shatters everything. And by the time Lilibet was born in 2021, Buckingham Palace had already learned something dangerous. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any royal statement. When Lilibet came into the world, the public expected the usual royal fanfare. Official announcements, royal doctors, cameras waiting by hospital gates. But this time, there was none of that. No royal doctor, no formal notice on the palace gate, no Buckingham Palace statement. Just a cheerful press release from California. It looked sweet and modern. Harry and Meghan welcome baby girl. But what was missing was the signature that mattered most, the crowns. There was no royal seal, no official witness, no palace confirmation, no record filed in the royal archives. To outsiders, it seemed like a small detail. But to those who understand royal tradition, it was a thunderclap. For the first time in over 100 years, a Windsor descendant was born outside the crown's official record. And that's when it started, the quiet rejection. Not through words, but through absence. To the world, she was a baby girl born under California sunshine. But to the monarchy, she was born outside their history. And in royal language, that's not an accident, it's a statement. But it didn't stop there. When Meghan proudly shared that Lilibet had been baptized in California, describing the joy, the photos, the meaning, the palace froze. Because for the royal family, a baptism isn't just a celebration, it's a requirement. It's the third and final rule written by King George V himself, the legal moment when a royal child becomes part of the crown's spiritual lineage. Yet, according to church records, Lilibet's California baptism was never registered with the Church of England. It might have been a heartfelt family ceremony, but to the monarchy, it was invisible. A christening that didn't exist. That might sound harsh, but in the royal world, it's everything. Because without that official christening, a child stands outside the royal structure, no matter how royal the parents may be. And to the palace, that wasn't a sweet little mistake. It was a structural break. Inside those golden walls, whispers began. The Sussex children were slipping away from the system. Not by the children's fault, but by their parents' choices. And for the monarchy, that's when it became irreversible. Lilibet was left hanging between two worlds, celebrated by her American family, ignored by the British institution. One child, two identities, and a crown that refused to recognize either. But as these cracks widened, something even more personal was happening behind closed doors. Harry, the once beloved prince who swore he'd left it all behind, began to look back. According to insiders, he made late-night calls, emotional and desperate. He wasn't calling as a royal, he was calling as a father. He begged them, begged the palace to reconsider, to write Archie and Lilibet into the royal record, to give them the titles they were born into, to protect their legacy, even if he no longer wore the uniform. This wasn't about fame, not this time. Harry wasn't chasing headlines, he was chasing heritage, the one thing he thought he could still save. But every call ended the same way. A palace aide allegedly told him, with the kind of coldness only royalty can deliver, "This isn't about emotion. This is about order, lineage, and the future of the crown." And that's when Harry understood. He wasn't just the prince who walked away. He was the prince whose children were being erased from the royal story. Once the decision was made, the palace didn't announce it with trumpets or statements. They moved like they always do, in silence, with precision, with centuries of discipline guiding every quiet step. No press release, no headlines, just quiet action. One by one, the consequences started falling into place. Silent, deliberate, irreversible. Archie and Lilibet would hold no royal titles, no prince, no princess, no ceremonial roles, no official duties, no public honors. They were out of the line of succession, their names quietly removed or blocked from the legal order. No crown-funded protection. Their safety would now depend entirely on their parents. Even their names, the ones meant to be written in royal archives to stand for centuries, were gone. And in the world of monarchy, titles are not just pretty words. They are keys. Keys that open the gates of history. Keys that tie a child to a story older than the country itself. Without those keys, a royal child becomes ordinary. And that's exactly what the palace made them. Ordinary. Not as punishment, but as protocol. Archie and Lilibet's royal connection was quietly erased, not by hatred, but by heritage. The rules their ancestors wrote came back to claim them. And when the crown finally moved, it didn't argue. It didn't justify. It didn't even explain. It simply acted. Because the monarchy has always known its greatest weapon: silence. Silence is not weakness. It's not emptiness. It's strategy. While Harry and Meghan gave interviews, made documentaries, shared podcasts, poured their hearts out to the world, the palace didn't say a word. It watched, patiently, coldly, calmly, because it knew noise fades, but official silence, that's forever. Years passed, and Meghan built her brand as a royal mother in America. Harry fought to balance two worlds, the one he left and the one he couldn't let go of. But all the while, the palace was unmoved, because deep down, they understood something the world keeps forgetting. Power doesn't shout. Power waits. Power erases quietly. And when the time came, Buckingham Palace didn't have to defend itself. It just pressed a few keys, signed a few papers, and history changed. The names of Archie and Lilibet, once printed beside the line of succession, disappeared. Their titles gone, their places removed. No press conference, no leaks. Just an empty silence echoing through the record books. And that silence, that was the message. Not for the tabloids, not for the fans. For Harry and Meghan themselves. The crown doesn't bend. Not for personality, not for popularity, not for sympathy. You can shout, cry, give interviews, release memoirs, but once the crown has decided to erase your place, you don't remain a rebel. You don't even remain a character. You just vanish. That's how the monarchy works. Its justice is quiet. Its punishment, eternal. So now, Archie and Lilibet will grow up far away from the palace gates, loved deeply by their parents, protected, happy, free. But in the pages of royal history, the ones that last longer than fame, longer than headlines, their names won't appear. And maybe that's the cruelest part, because in the royal world, absence is punishment. Silence is the answer. And once a decision like that is made, it's forever. It's forever.